Yo, this is Ancient Texan. I've had a couple of more thoughts on Maduro, Venezuela, besides the obvious ones that we're going in there for the oil. Oh, first I heard a podcast by a Venezuelan who was very happy to see the Maduro uh, reign of illegitimacy and terror end. And he talked about how one third of the Venezuelan people had left Venezuela, and how thousands, hundreds of thousands had been put into jail and lots of people murdered, and that, the was desperate, and whatever, Trump did, Americans did, couldn't be as bad as what they were living under. So I'll acknowledge that that's probably a valid point. Um, I also heard something that actually seems to tie things together a little better, and that's about the petrodollar. 50 years ago, we made a deal with Saudi Arabia. Um, we agreed to give them protection, you know, cover their ass in the Middle East if they sold um, their oil in dollars. And it's been that way for 50 years. Well, starting in January, they're going to sell uh, their oil to anybody in almost any currency. And one in particular, the BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, I don't know all the countries, but it represents a lot of people, have put together a currency. Um, it's a basket of currencies. The rumor is that Venezuela was about to sign a deal with them that they would sell their oil instead of with petrodollar, our dollar, they'd sell it in the BRICS currency. China has also been kind of keeping Venezuela afloat and helping them with, engineering, construction, keeping their oil fields going. They're down from, 2 million barrels a day to zero point 0.5, and most of that though is going to China. China now knows that they're probably not going to be getting that oil, but it also sends a message to the rest of the world. Um, I think that the U.S. can't be trusted. Simultaneously with this, our dollar is collapsing. Uh, we're having, there's also a little shortage of silver that the JP Morgan and other big banks in the US sold silver they didn't have. And now those shorts are coming due, and they don't have the money to cover the shorts. Short meaning they sell something they don't have. And that there's money, the feds have been slipping money into the banks. So this is a little more complicated than it first seems. But this might be about if you stop Venezuela from uh, moving to sell its oil in the BRICS currencies instead of American dollar, uh, that on the short haul might kind of save the dollar, or at least make it not decay quite as fast. Um, But it destroys confidence in America and trust, which is why they use our dollar, because we're a country that follows the law. So if we're not following the law, uh, I'm afraid we're going to destroy confidence of the world in us if Trump hasn't already done that. So we've just witnessed something that's going to have a short-term effect. People are probably going to think about us oil coming in, and that's kind of going to boost the stock market temporarily. Um, but we're also, this is being done in light of, we're probably right on the edge of going into a recession if we're not in one already. Uh, the top 10% of the society is what's carrying us. They're buying stuff and getting a lot of money in their pockets. The rest of us are not. Um, and this whole thing's kind of some big, fragile, uh, make believe world we're living in. Even the AI bubble that's carrying, 7 companies that are making AI are pretending that that's going to make us rich. I think it's going to make the rich people richer. It's going to make the poor people poor. But I've covered that in other podcasts. So we have this whole big facade. Even the idea that we're going to be selling the oil, we can probably sell, what they can pump out. That's probably not a big deal. To 500,000 barrels a day. But to take that back up to 2 million barrels or more, the oil is certainly there. But even a U.S. company has to believe that there's some kind of long term plan mechanism that gives them legitimacy and that they don't spend a bunch of money in there, billions of dollars, making the oil field work, um, and then lose it again. We don't know what the new government's going to look like, what they're going to want to do, um, how we're going to transition to that. We don't know what kind of long-term deals are going to be put in place. It's all everything's up in the air, and that's going on at the same time that Russia's struggling to put oil out into the world, and Ukraine's uh, destroying their ports and the shadow fleet of tankers. So we've got this whole world in kind of a mess. I don't see it sorting itself out inside of Trump's term. Rubio, is he going to go down there and run Venezuela? And how much are the Venezuelans going to cooperate with him? Are they going to put in power the lady that won the last election? Are you going to put in some stooge from America? Somebody that will be a yes man to Trump? I suspect we'll go with the yes man uh, to Trump. So almost nothing makes sense except kind of cutting off the BRICS consortium from coming in there and pricing Venezuelan um, oil in the BRICS basket of currencies. In short, we shouldn't expect anything that Trump does to actually make sense. He seldom has a plan, and even when he has a half-assed plan, he never really tells us about it. and his plan will change one day to the next. So we can't really expect there to be a plan and for anybody to know what's going on. I think that's the real lesson. These are interesting times. This is messed up. All of this is it's just like we're going to reshore all these companies in America and rebuild all these supply chains without really a solid plan. Nope. I'm sucking on a cough drop, pardon me. I don't think we should expect there to be a solid plan in Venezuela either. I keep making that same mistake. I keep thinking, oh, what's Trump's plan? And then I remember Trump never has a plan. At least he never has a plan that's very well thought out. So we shouldn't expect there to be one now. Anyway, this is some more ramblings by the ancient Texan. Hope you have a good one. Namaste.